chilly. I actually had to wear my toque, and I got my pizza gloves over there. And I got my skateboard. Let's do a quick little. Do one more, and then we'll get into the topic. I don't know if that picked it up or not. Probably one more, maybe. That is weird. All right, today's topic: the disappearing world elites and bankers. Da, da, da. All right, so anyway, I'll get off the board because I know people. It's too windy. We can't hear what you're saying. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm just gonna come to my parking spot right here. There's good. I was supposed to come to a nice straight line, but there. Okay, so yeah, exodus of the world elites. Well, they've been doing this for a couple of years now, but it comes to my attention that particularly around like New York and Chicago and places like that, Baltimore I think is another one. All the richest people that are in that area are like taking off. They're going. We know that the world elites have been building bunkers like mad stink since 2012, probably earlier than that, but like in the large numbers since 2012. And a couple little kids there over there at the park. We got a new park, so that's the first year with the park, so or with the swings and all that stuff. So that's cute. But yeah, it's like yeah. So apparently there's a lot of weird things going on simultaneously. And so you got like in the past couple of weeks, a big exodus, from what I understand. I mean, look into it for yourself, that type of thing. And where are they going? You know, places like New Zealand, all these little kind of away from society kind of places. There's been, according to Steve Quayle, which you got to take him with a grain of salt because he does go down the rabbit hole quite a bit. I think a lot of what he covers is 100%, but there's probably a lot of what he covers is so far out there that you can't connect to it with reality, right? It's like you have to put a complete leap of faith to believe what he's saying. So that's what I mean by take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying he's wrong. I mean, if he's right about everything he says, I mean, that's a pretty terrifying right. But if he's only right about 1% of what he says, it's still pretty terrifying. I say the same thing about Alex Jones. It's now too hot. Too cold, too hot, too cold, too hot. The wind, wind's cold, the sun's warm. And anyway, so, but what he was saying is that there's government food orders that are not going to their normal government suppliers or buyers. They're going to all these new places, to like underground shelters and bunkers and stuff like that, and like ridiculous amounts. And it's same like with all these Walmarts closing and stuff like that. Yeah, I think a lot of the economy has to do with that, but there could be commandeering of stuff. Think about it. Okay, you've got, if you closed, let's say you had 100 world elites, okay, and you drained out just 100 people. It doesn't have to be world elites, but 100 people, and you drained out a Walmart with everything it had in it, junk and good stuff alike. Just the amount of supplies you would have that would be worthwhile keeping, toilet paper, cleansers, soap, the list goes on and on. How long would that stuff last? Like 100 people. It lasts probably a long time. Maybe not forever, but you clear out, like, say, 100 Walmarts worth of product and put it in these underground. Not only do you have, you'd have pretty much all the basics of life covered for a long time for a lot of people. And there is a fair amount of world elites. Now, uber elites, yeah, okay, their numbers aren't that big on the planet. The 3% of the 1%, that type of thing. Yeah, they're in small enough numbers. But then they're going to be so well stocked and supplied. There's one thing that no matter how well supplied you are, that is a problem that people don't realize. They think they can prepare for anything and everything. And I'll get into my speculations of what they're doing. Again, looking at world events that are actually going on, you can only talk about the world events going on and then speculate what might come out of it. That's pretty much what I do on this channel all the time. But the thing is you could have everything you want. Let's say this was the size of your bunker and it was laid out however you want. So there's a hockey rink, I don't know, it's like 200 and it's almost an acre. Like it's 200 by, I think, I can't remember what the dimensions for the rink are. It's not a football field, so it's probably like 150, well, it might be close to 200. 208 by 208 is an acre, so it's probably like half an acre right here. So if you had half an acre in a bunker somewhere, underground somewhere, living out the apocalypse or whatever, stocked with anything, no price is the option. I guarantee you, you would give it all away after only probably even a few weeks to be even out on a cold day like today in the sun. You would give it up for that. Why? Psychological. And that's where I think the world elites are. I mean, they are sick people to begin with. Can you imagine what these people are going to be like in isolation? Pandorum. They're going to get Pandorum. That's what's going to get. That's what's going to happen. Is they're going to get Pandorum. If you haven't seen the movie Pandorum, it goes back. It's kind of a good movie. Basically, it was this colony that left Earth. Okay, because the planet was dying and there was going to be a big catastrophe. I don't know what the catastrophe was, whether it was an asteroid or whatever it was. And they sent out this ship full of people, and it was going to take something like 10 generations to get to where they were going to go. Now, there was a couple of ships that they sent out, and on the ship, after being in deep space for a while, people would start to develop this kind of paranoia. And this is actually real, that you do get, I don't know, they might exaggerate in the movie, but you do get space, like a space sickness, right? From being encapsulated, you actually kind of go a bit bad. And your brain does go under changes under zero gravity, right? But in the ship, there's gravity. They have a gravitation machine, whatever, magnetic boots, whatever it is you can run around on. And the thing is that after a while, these people would get Pandorum, and one scene, a bit of a spoiler alert here, but there's like 5,000 people in hypersleep, okay, and they're going to go rotate, okay, well, you're going to be awake for so many years, and then you're going to go back to sleep, and by the time you get there, you're probably going to be an old person, but it's not about you, it's about the next generations, and you're just going to do this cycle over and over. And one guy wakes up, and like the ship is completely about to melt down, and everything's going wrong, stuff like that, and then there's these things on the ship that have kind of been modified, people that have been turned into basically genetically altered. And that would kind of, and then of course you got these other people suffering from Pandorum, trying to, kind of like extreme paranoia, thinking let's jettison everybody out into outer space so that they, to save them, kill them to save them, that's it, type of thing. And you'd say, okay, well, what does that have to do with the world elites? Well, picture the isolation of a bunker. If you go back to the 1950s, okay, and the garden variety bunker that would be no bigger than the penalty box for like a family of 6. Yeah, you're going to wait 10 years in something that big. It's just so unrealistic, But back in the day, people thought, okay, well, no, I'm prepared. I got my bunker, and it'll be good enough for 10 years in a bunker. I can live in that, sure, for 10 years. Wow, you'd have a hard time living in something this large for 10 years. The psychological acceptance you would have to be able to do that, and to make sure that everybody in your family could do the same to psychologically, or whoever you're with, to psychologically accept that would be impossible. Which brings me full circle to the topic. So you've got world elites scrambling to get out of Dodge now. Why now? Well, I don't think it's really a why now. I think it's kind of ongoing in blurps. Meaning probably in 2008, you've seen a lot of people leave the country. Almost all the world elites are out of the countries that they're going to destroy. Why? Because they know they're going to be destroyed. That's what they're planning. And some, okay, maybe they're not planning it, but they don't want to create a panic or get blamed going along to get along, that type of thing. I mean, if you're the right-hand man of the doomsday, of the guy who's got the Pandorum, you know what I mean, and you're following his orders, they're going to blame you too, right? So these people are leaving. They're leaving to avoid responsibility, is the simplest way to put it. Because they can't face reality. Most of these psychopaths can't. And some of them are not actual psychopaths. They're just really gullible and stupid. You see this with politicians all the time, where they really do get themselves in over the head because they don't understand what they're dealing with. They don't understand how the corrupt mind works. They don't understand that their decisions actually have lethal consequences if they make the wrong decision. The very few politicians that do, or leaders in history, I like using Alexander the Great as an example. Now, myth or legend is debated, but there's pretty much more than enough evidence to say that this man existed. And some of the things he did, particularly in one battle with the Persians, where he went after a Persian king, and while in pursuit, he looked over his soldier, and he was on the cavalry, right? So they're on their horses, and they're going after this, and he's going after glory. If he takes out this king, he wins the Persian Empire. He looks back and sees his men being slaughtered. He stops the chase, goes back after his men. Why? Because I think in that moment he understood consequence. Yes, if I go that, people will worship me for taking out the king. But I'll be an immortal legend if I go back for my fellow man. And that's that kind of a mind in that kind of a situation tells you of somebody of good, sound character. You know, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. If you're fighting him, he's probably a really bad man. If he's defending you, he's probably a really good guy, right? But he's a decisive man, and even his opponents would probably respect him for that. You know, I don't like you, I'm going to kill you, but I respect you. Why, at least you know, you do what you say, you mean what you say, and you say what you mean. That type of thing. So that type of thing is, we don't have world elites like that nowadays. We don't have people, you know, like Richard the Lionheart, who, okay, we're going to go and invade Iraq, and you didn't have George Bush, you know, flying the A-10s in. You know what I mean? He wasn't, you know, on the first Abrams through Fallujah, that type of thing. He wasn't there. No, these cowards, they decide wars from safe places, right? Which to me should be something that the people should have a say on. If you go to war, the people should have the say, and yes, that should have consequences for the world elites that are all gung-ho to go into neocon, Zionist banker wars. And what it should include is things like, if you decide to go to war, you pledge if you have kids that are of fighting age, they go. They don't get a choice. They go. They're going on to the front line because you believe in that cause. I can guarantee you it will become such a peaceful planet. The diplomatic resolve will be tough, but they'll be very diplomatic. It's like, no, we don't want to send our kids to war. How do you tell your wife, yeah, we're going to go and bomb Iran. But mind you, Susie and Tommy are going to go get their guts blown out there. You know, it's for the greater good, right? Yeah, that's not going to fly. It's just not, you know, so yeah, actions should have consequences from the actions. That I think is what it is. But that's not how we live. How we live right now is on accountability. So you have these world elites fleeing at a time when it just seems like, I don't know how many meetings it's been now. I know there's been over 4 Federal Reserve meetings, including Obama in on the Federal Reserve meetings. That should strike you as a little bit odd. Maybe once in a while, not a big deal. 4 or 5 in a row meetings, you know, and then if you've seen the meltdown of Janet Yellen, the Federal Chair Reserve, yes, I understand that is a very pressurable spot to be in charge of the wealth of the country, so to speak. But imagine knowing what's coming. Even if you're a liar, even if you're okay with it, imagine knowing what's coming. You're gonna alter your behavior. So you have Janet Yellen saying, yes, we're in a recovery, and then like into stun mode. Why? Because what does it mean? What does economic collapse mean? It means one of two things. If they've kicked the ball down the road this far, and I mean, we should have collapsed 2008, 2012 max. But they haven't. There is going to be, and I still stick to my guns, pardon the pun here, but that there will be no economic collapse till war comes. That's why the U.S. is so hell-bent on trying to start a war with Russia or China. They're trying to get Russia or China to shoot first. It's provocation. And a lot of people don't see it that way. They think, no, we're patriotic, we're doing this. No. For the second time, and yes, this happened again, the USS Donald Cook. Now, mind you, this could be a ploy. It's hard to say. Maybe the USS Donald Cook is that dated of a ship. It is an old ship. It was probably built in the 70s, even with upgrades and whatever. Was buzzed 30 times. Last time it was 12 times. This time it was 30 times by Russian Su-24 fencers, which are fighter bombers. More of a bomber than a fighter, but we'll call them a fighter bomber. And we're talking flying over the deck. You know, enough that you could tell if the guy had blue eyes when he passed. You know what I mean? It's like, here comes this. That guy had blue eyes from the deck. You know what I mean? So yeah, so they pass over. The Russians pass over the U.S. ship, which, being that close to Russia, I mean, how can the United States say, well, you know, they had no right to do that? Well, if there was a Russian warship off the coast of Florida, I'm pretty sure the U.S. Navy pilots would be buzzing that thing 100 times in a minute. You know, they'd have like 60 aircraft out there. You know, get out of our waters, get off our coastline. So I understand, yes, the Russians are going to do that. We know the Russians are going to do that. The Russians will provoke back just enough to let you not have what you want. That's the way the Russians work. They don't want to be the ones to start it. They've had lots of opportunities to make a self-defense claim. They've had tons. You know, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. And trust me, I'm not a fan of the Russian government either. There are no good governments around the world. There's no good guys. All the governments around the world have failed the people. But the question is, how did they fail us? Well, they failed us by, right now in the States, it looks like, I can't remember which state it is, but they're going to be basically taking all the retirements to bail out the Fed. At a time when, about 4 or 5 days ago from the making of this video, Austria basically just did their bail-in on Sunday night, but they announced it about 4 or 5 days ago. So Austria, a country in Europe that's supposed to be one of the more financially secure, has a small bank that now needs a bail-in. It's insolvent. And this is kind of the chain reaction we've seen in 2008. It starts with one little bank, and it's the little banks that drag, because of a globalized economy and globalization. You have to understand, all banks are Rothschild-owned banks. There is no private banks. Yes, they put different titles on this bank, that, but at the end of the day, if they're all subservient to the IMF, they're all Rothschild banks. So one falls, it's a mountain climber effect. One falls, we all fall. And I think that's what these meetings are about, is like, oh my God, the bubbles are bursting. How do we get out of this so that the pitchfork revolution doesn't kill us? Well, there's two things that are going to happen. One is war. Two, it's just going to go hell on earth in particularly the major cities. And it's going to come up unexpected. There's going to be no warning. It's just going to be bang. You go to the ATM, sorry, out of service. Every ATM, out of service. Okay, you go into your bank, the banks are closed. Doors are locked. Sorry, we're closed. Okay, no explanation. It's just going to, anything financial is going to turn into a ghost town. You might be able to use your ATM, your machine, your card, like say, buying stuff, whatever. But everything's going to go into lockdown mode. And this will be a banker holiday. And we've seen it in Cyprus, we've seen it in Greece, we've seen it in Spain. They're doing it again over and over. They haven't stopped doing it. That's why the bail-in protocol, which you have to think about it, like just because they make it legal, stealing doesn't matter if you say, well, it's now legal for the government to steal from people. People are going to get pissed off. It's not the amount. It's not the guy who has $50 in the account. It's the guy that has $500 million in the account that you just stole. He's always got enough money under his pillow to hire a hitman. And where's my money? Now, excuse me, there's another thing to keep in mind here. The world elites, they know that at some point this is going to hit, and no matter how they kick it down the road, what they're doing, I think, is buying time for themselves to prepare. The gold, they're buying the gold, everything like that. And the talk of a new world economy, a new world wealth, and of course, the floated 2000 Economist magazine back in 1988, predicting a one world currency by 2018, tells us death and destruction is around the corner. It sounds all good and everything like that, but you have to understand it's complete enslavement of the planet. This comes at the barrel of a gun. It doesn't come at, oh, okay, we're doing this so that the world economies, there'll be no more markets. It'll just be everybody gets a certain amount of money and that's it. But this is also on the cusp, and I'll be doing a different video on this, is on the cusp of, basically a automated society, a robotic, a robot economy. That's what they were talking about in Davos. Meaning these people are psycho. They can't wait to kill people off. They're like, well, we don't need all these people now, so we need an event so that they kill each other. A purge. Another movie kind of idea. That's the type of thing that we have to look at. And the thing is the sporadicness that I'm seeing right now, particularly the Janet Yellen meltdown, it's just, you could tell she's like, Christopher Green on AMT had it about a week or so ago. And you can just see, like, the woman is just a complete, utter mental breakdown. Barely functional to talk. This woman knows something bad is coming. And she's responsible. Why? Because she wasn't hired because of her brain. She was precisely hired because she was an idiot. She was precisely hired because she couldn't count. Uses the we think and we believe progressive mentality. These people are gullible. They're useful idiots. That's their only role. And yeah, people are going to blame her. But it's not her, though. Like, yes, she's a part of it. She's a part of the problem. Stupidity is, you can't fix stupid. I get that. But on the other hand, who are the puppeteers? And these are the people that are disappearing. And they're going to disappear. They're disappearing now because, again, we're in that time where anything can happen at any time, right? And it's always been that way, but it seems like now the push is really, okay, we got to get a war started now, and you have to understand, the Russians and the Chinese, the eye on the prize for them is to not start a war and just let the United States implode. When the U.S. petrodollar, which is being alienated as we speak, just because they don't cover it on the mainstream media doesn't mean it's not happening. Of course it's happening. You have 105 countries. Okay, and there's only 170 some odd countries, depending on the coup of the week, 170 to 180 countries on the planet, right? And 105 of them are now accepting trade in the yuan renminbi, the Chinese currency, and using the AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Bank. This is a direct competition to the IMF. And a lot of, for example, Syria, when it gets rebuilt, the contracts are going to China and Russia. They're not going to, and Iran. They're not going to go to any Western. So isolation is happening much faster than I thought. But yeah, it takes about a decade to do that power transition handover. Now the problem is the Chinese, they're rigged too. I mean, all the systems are rigged. Thing is they rig it a little differently. And their population, yeah, they've got a bigger population to deal with, but they're unarmed. In the States, they're armed to the teeth. The gun control is not about safety. The Black Lives Matter thing is not about, repression. It's all the same leaders. George Soros. The new thing now is the democracy spring. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, what's George Soros' spin on this one? And it makes sense. What happened to Occupy Wall Street? Well, you had a handful of people that had a great message. Anybody know what it was? Well, I'll tell you what it was. The ones that were really, nail on the head and dangerous were sitting there going, arrest the world elites, arrest the bankers and the policymakers that made this disaster happen. And it was drowned by what I used to refer to as your anarcho-communist or your communist student, which we now call social justice warriors. That just goes out there and throws Molotov cocktails, completely drowns out the message. Well, Democracy Spring is designed to do the same thing. Get ahead of the protest. This is a world elite tactic that they do all the time. Control the protest by getting ahead of it. So you put you find they're agent provocateurs as useful idiots, meaning they don't train these people. They take the people that they know they could stir up and say, okay, well, yes, people out there in Democracy Spring are calling for getting money out of politics are right. But no one's going to hear that. They're just going to see, here's another bunch of crybabies busting up the things, raising our taxes to fix it like they're idiots. And both sides are correct. But the idea is to dilute the message so that it doesn't get through. But I don't think it's going to work for very much longer. Hence why the world elites are leaving, because there are people who know. Now, there's another little spin on this. We got to go back again. One nice thing about this channel, and I always tell people, don't be afraid to watch the older stuff, because sometimes you'll catch stuff on that and say, now I understand why they did it back then. Remember, okay, Obama got rid of 260 plus generals and purge of the military, or commanders, generals, everything. Now, a lot of it, there's a lot of different reasons for this. Not all of what you think. I'll start with the unobvious first. Number one, robot commanders. DARPA. The whole thing with them is automation, so that you can just put cyborg John out on the street, basically RoboCops everywhere, and not have to worry about the human thing. So then there's no accountability. It's the machine said you were in violation, and it shot you and it killed you, and that was the end of it. You were in the wrong. Why? Because the machine said so. Driverless cars right now. Now, millennials, unfortunately, are the millennials are the ones that are the most brainwashed. They're the ones that are okay with driverless cars, okay with the robot economy. They're okay with automation. They're okay with this and that and the other thing, because that's what they've been brainwashed to accept. But they don't realize how devastating it will be to them if you're not on the list of acceptable, useful idiot or useless eater. So if you're on the list, no problem. But there's a lot of people. Most of us will not be on that list. Yes, it will be cleansing. A purge. And the thing is that that's the one thing, okay? So firing all these guys, that's one part. The second part is obedience. In order to have your General Petraeus out there to say, what comes after the U.S., North American Union? Well, the North American Union is already in play. That's what people know. The Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership is already in play. They're just trying to legalize it. That's all. That's the only thing. NAFTA, all that stuff, it's been around for years. But Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 pretty much tells you the blueprint. And the blueprint is to kill 90% of the world's population. It sounds lunatic, but when you consider the people that we're dealing with, they are lunatics. Yeah, that's how they think. Often referred to Latimer Len when he wrote in his memoirs that he was ecstatic when 20 million Russians starved to death because he no longer needed those useless eaters and the economy could restore itself. Wow, we're going to a robot economy, people. There is no job for Look at all the Walmarts people that protested to get $15 an hour. Yeah, they got their $15 an hour, and now half those Walmarts are now being closed. Why? Because they're not needed anymore. Robot economy. Heck, Adolf Hitler warned about over-automation, that people would have nothing to do. So now you have up here in Canada where they're talking about, a guaranteed income. Because what do you do with all these people? Well, first you start on a guaranteed income, and then you kind of, keep them on that. And if you want to use Attawapiskat, which is in the news right now, as an idea, that's what perpetual welfare will look like. Mass suicides, mass devastation. I'll get back to the Black Lives Matter, and then I'll finish up on the generals and stuff like that, because I think that has a lot to do with what we're going to see. Now, the Black Lives Matter, Black Pigeon Speak did an excellent video, and it's been what I've been saying too, just using statistics. Okay, so in 2000, I'm just going to, never mind the decade. If you know the difference, if you can count, what number is bigger, 2,300 or 1,100? Well, 2,300 is obviously the bigger number. For those of you who don't know, can't figure that out. Because there are some people that can seem to, they are brought up in a 2 + 2 = 5 kind of mentality. And you need to break this mentality. Your survival will depend on it. And one of the things that's going to happen is that in that last past decade, that's how many white people, non-Hispanic white people, were shot by police officers. So almost double, or more than double, than black people shot, okay? But if you look at the news, you think it's just an epidemic with the black people. In fact, in 2015, 250 blacks were shot by police officers, and over 450, give or take a couple, were shot that were white. So again, whites get shot at a higher rate. You're more likely to get shot by a police officer when you're white than you are black. So is it a race issue? No, I think it's a militarized of the police issue. And which goes to show that, well, how come you're not hearing those statistics on the news? And this accounts for, if you account for population, again, the smaller, per capita and the disrepresentation of crime, you're still more likely to get shot as a white person. So why is that on, where's the White Lives Matter movement? Well, there is no White Lives Matter movement. Why? Because most of these guys probably getting shot, with the exception of a few, are probably a lot of them are thugs, and nobody cares, right? Now, that said, kind of makes me think of the line from Simply for the Devil, on movies and songs, all the cops are sinners and all the sinners saints. And that's what you're seeing. Again, the motives for these world elites like George Soros, is he a Satanist? I don't know. Is he nuts? Yes. Is he evil? Beyond evil. How can that evil be allowed to, where are the good law enforcement military? Step up, be brave. Alexander the Great needs you right now, or we need him. You know what I mean? We need the new Alexander the Great. Which brings me back to these divide and conquer things. This idea, they do want a civil race war. Why? Again, if they're fighting each other, they're not fighting us, like Henry Kissinger said. Another evil man. That's all these things. Every time you track George Soros back to the movement, it's death and destruction will follow. Now, there's a reason for that. Again, if you're hating on each other, you're not... they do this in the Middle East. They can do this anywhere. They can do this anywhere. Now, the idea of divide and conquer is simple. It's a scapegoat. It gives the elites somebody to blame, somebody to demonize. That's why being a white cisgendered male is the most evil thing on the planet, even if you've done nothing to anybody. They don't care about that. They want divide and conquer. So you'll have to defend yourself against the horrid masses. Meanwhile, these people get away scot-free. Why? Because nobody's looking at them. They don't realize that the people, these world elites, have went to their bunkers or are planning bunkers. And the thing is, if they got bunkers planned left, right, and center, who knows? And maybe it's not so much about the economy. Maybe it's something else. Yellowstone Park, if that thing goes up, there's been a lot of earthquakes, 36 so far this year, major earthquakes. That's something that, volcanoes, 36 volcanoes. Usually you get an average about 60 a year, and we're already at 38 that have erupted this year. So, who knows? The earth changes. It does its thing. Maybe they know this, and they're like, okay, well, we don't want mass panic in the streets. So they're going to leave it to the 11th hour before they tell everybody. And of course, like anything, even like on 9/11, the world elites were well off to their bunkers and safe places before they told the public. So no, they will not tell you in time. They'll leave you in the Mad Max world. That's the way they think. That's the way, again, they're psychos. They don't care about being honest. They wouldn't give you a 10-year warning, you know what I mean, if they knew it. They wouldn't give you a 100-year warning if they knew it. They might put out subtle things and stuff like that for you to know. Because again, they don't know, they're going by if we say this and it's not right, then we're held accountable. Okay, fine. You would be held accountable if you say, okay, it's going to happen on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, that type of thing. Okay, sure. I get that. but saying, well, there's a possibility in the next this, and this, something to be aware of. You should have this on hand. You should have that on hand. Look at FEMA. They tell you to be prepared for 3 days. That's it. 3 days. So another Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Sandy comes up, just be prepared for 3 days. Did the devastation last longer than 3 days? You see what I mean? Like it looks like they're trying to help you, but they're really not. Was everybody rescued in 3 days? No, of course not. What they should be telling you is be prepared for a long haul. You don't have to be, but they don't want people prepared. Why? Vulnerable people are easy to enslave. Independent people are a problem. That's it. So now I'll finish up on the, I'm going on a little bit long now, the extremely quiet generals and stuff, all these guys that got fired. They got fired and then you don't hear about them. Now after the Benghazi incident, there was a military coup staged there. And that coup was basically two generals. One offered air support, one offered, got his guys over there. And they were told to stand down. We know now that Benghazi, yes, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all these people basically wanted that to happen. They needed an excuse. It was a weapons deal gone bad with Chris Stevens. I mean, it's so openly admitted now. But yet, it's not only that Hillary Clinton is walking free and Barack Obama, but the thing is that she's still running for president. Like, how is this possible, right? So, obviously at the top, there's a lot of people running defense for these people. That means anybody in the government that is running defense for these people, after knowing what they've done, they need to be held accountable. There is going to be, I think, a military coup in the States. There's no doubt about that. Not the question of if, but when. Because these generals, they're all silent. They're nowhere to be found. They just disappeared. Every one of them. Now, did they knock them off? That's a possibility. But we did hear, just shortly after that there was General Petraeus. Okay, this is after. Think about what he quit for. They didn't fire him. He quit out of shame because apparently he had an affair. Okay, like think about that. You could. Oh, I feel so bad. Okay, I'm in charge of the most powerful military in the world. In certain areas, and I feel so bad for having an affair. I'm going to quit that. No, that's a personal problem. It's a personal problem. That has nothing to do. If it doesn't affect your job, you should still be doing your job. So I find it very suspicious that he quit that. Now, what was going to happen around that time was about 2,000 U.S. Military personnel were going to stage a coup. This when there was a WhiteHouse.gov. There was a kind of a strange letter. I remember reading it, and it said there is a something to do with a coup and whatever, and it's being handled internally. And this went out to the public. It was a weird paper. This is back just shortly after that. I can't remember the dates and times, but I remember Dabu7 or somebody like that had it talking about this. It was just the most bizarre message, but who was it for? I don't know. Most public, I don't think, would have gotten it. But basically it said, basically the troublemakers from within are being dealt with, that type of thing. So with that said, that really puts us at a thing of a we versus they. So it means that if you work for the DHS, you are basically against your own people. If you work for, if you're going along with this, the people, and I've said it for, it's not the common man like me who can't do nothing. I can make videos. That's what I can do. That's about what I can do. That's just, I'm no match for an Abrams tank. You know what I mean? That type of thing. That's just reality. But however, the guys on the inside, the law enforcement, I particularly think the law enforcement is going to be a real problem for the world elites. Why? They know who the lawmakers are. They know who signed what bill when. They know who the judges are. They know who the lawyers are. They know who the policymakers are. And they will find, they know where and not only that, they know how to find people. That's the thing. They know how to find people. So the world elites, while the world elites will be easy enough to find their locations, it's who's building the bunkers for them. What do you think happens to the people that build the bunkers? Guy comes home one day, sitting there, and there's a couple of masked men, you know what I mean, sitting there with his family saying, yeah, you're going to tell us who you built for what, where. You know what I mean? Like, okay, the codes, everything like that's not relevant. They just need the location. When you got guys that are trained in using C4 and all kinds of stuff like that, combinations really are kind of obsolete at that point. Best security surveillance system, and you'll see the battering ram hit the front door. You know what I mean? Yeah, but they got armed guards in there. How many? You know what I mean? Like, again, you're talking the masses, the hordes, the masses. These people will not be able to make it. Even if they go to islands that are like in New Zealand and stuff like that, you don't think me? Okay, you got guys that know how to fly, helicopters stealthily into areas. You don't think they're going to be? Of course they're going to do it. It will be a military coup. And I think that's another reason why the world elites are bugging out. They know that the military, this is why they want the one world government, the one world, the UN blue helmets coming up the driveway, so to speak. Something that I remember a guy years ago talked about. I thought he was crazy back then, but I was like, yeah, I could see it. I could really see them disbanding all local law enforcement, military, and bringing in blue helmets. And I think that is the goal. Problem is I would not want to be wearing one of those blue helmets. That's going to be such a death sentence. Very, very bad. So they want to do it gradually, but I don't think it's going to, I don't think it's going to work, because what they're doing with the military in the States is they're trying to replace the military with people that will just comply no matter what. So yes, I know you're racist, bigot, you're picking on minorities, but yes, they are bringing people in, illegals and stuff like that in the States, to join the military. Not so much so they can give them citizenship, but because they'll have an easier time open firing on the citizens. It's just statistically proven. I mean, most countries, most soldiers will stand down most of the time, but not in all countries. Yes, some countries, the history shows that, just following orders is, and to me, anybody, when that gets to that, anybody following the just following orders, yes, the firing squad, them and their family, because you can't let that sickness get out. Yes, there will be punishment. There will be, you have to think, consequences and actions. Well, it's said that I could legally go and shoot my own citizens if they didn't comply. It's not my fault. Yes, it is. And this is where the disappearance of these generals and whatever, and we know about the constitutional sheriffs, which I think the constitutional sheriff thing, one thing about the gun control thing, is it flushes people out. It makes people show their hand. Okay, we know who's going to be a problem, who's not. And there's a whole bunch of veterans that were very vocal, particularly after the Iraq War, that are dead now. And a lot of them got knocked off. So this, I keep talking about that how come we haven't seen the people rising up? Well, I think they're getting knocked off, but I think at some point, the people in the know are like, okay, well, we have to stay covert, and how many guys within the system are going to hijack the system from within? That's what I fear. And there's two problems with this. The military coup in the States, because people can't take it back at this point, I don't think. Not without extreme bloodshed, but the thing is that politically, I don't think there's any way. Like Hillary Clinton is never going to go to jail. She's going to be the president of the United States, which is a very terrifying thought. Bernie Sanders, okay, yeah, you'll have an economic collapse with Bernie Sanders. You probably won't have a civil war or a race war over it. So, okay, in a sense, yes, Bernie Sanders might be the best option for the least damage. The best fix would be Donald Trump. He won't fix everything. Yes, you'll have a civil race war, which will be very bloody, but it will probably get out of foreign intervention in a lot of areas, and that should possibly save the country. That type of thing. If you have Hillary Clinton, you get a civil war, a race war, and a thermonuclear war with the Russians. You just have to listen to this lady. She is insane. The amount of people that have dropped dead around the Obamas and the Clintons and the Bushes, particularly the Clintons, is unbelievable. We're talking hundreds of people. That's why you notice she never has any critics. Like in high prominent places. Like again, it's just everybody coincidentally dying. Stuff like that. Look at that Judge Scalia that was killed there. I don't know much about the man, but now there's a lot of bills that are being passed that he would have opposed. And a lot of it has to do with military and martial law and stuff like that. Strange how that works, right? Yeah. And immigration and citizenship. Yeah. So, yeah. It's a dirty game. So I said 2016 is a year to really watch for world elites. Never mind all the rock stars that are just dropping, actors dropping dead like crazy. Some of them, yeah, okay, they're old, but there just seems to be like this drop off, like this just massive drop off. But watch the banking elites. How many of them are dying? How many of the military people are dying? A lot of the stuff is not going to make it on the mainstream media. It never will. Why? Because if you pick up on the pattern of it, you'll pick up on the agenda. Hence, gun control and transgenders and Black Lives Matter. That's what they want you to focus on. They want you to focus on stuff like that. Democracy Spring. Stuff like that. Stuff that people will not get anything accomplished. So, the guys, maybe hopefully we've got a few Alexander the Greats out there, law enforcement, military. I'd rather they did things openly in public, but don't announce it. Just do it. Get your paperwork. Arrest these people. Restore rule of law, because if you don't, the chaos... one thing I admire about the Chinese, yes, their government is bad. Yes, their government is corrupt. Yes, they lock people up. They disappear people. They do all kinds of bad stuff like that. They have their way of doing things. one thing I do admire about them is that they truly understand to win a war without firing a shot is the most flawless victory. So before you think guns blazing, that type of thing, restoring rule of law is the most, it will be painful no matter which way we go, because an economic collapse kills people around the world, period. Like, the amount of starvation is just going to be unbelievable. Never mind natural disasters that could possibly happen there. So I think if we have restoration of rule of law, one charge, crimes against humanity, that's it. That's all you got to do. Deputize me. I'll get it. I'll start with George Soros, work my way down. Soros, Kissinger, and Brzezinski. Start with them. Get the Obama administration. Everybody under them. And the list goes on and on. I mean, it's like these people are operating in the know. I mean, their criminality is open. One charge, crimes against humanity. Arrest them on acts of global terrorism. And because they are so dangerous, you send them to Guantanamo. You can do this now. You don't even have to put up a charge. You can just grab these people saying, for national security, yeah, at 1022, section 1022, there you go, you got them. Just go grab them. That's it. That's all you got to do. And who's gonna think of who's gonna go against that? And this can include CIA directors, all these people, because the CIA and the DHS are evil. They are evil at this point. Like, there might be some good people in there, but if they really truly understand what they're doing, same with the NSA, like if they understand what they're doing, they're gonna have to do some soul searching. And if you're still just following orders after that, then again, actions have consequences. And this, we were just following orders, we're so sorry. Remember after the Berkut there in Kiev, over there in the Ukraine, after the Maidan protests, you had all these Berkut guys on their knees begging for forgiveness from the population. And one guy said it. Sorry, we were just following orders. One guy said that. One guy said that. How many more times in history are we going to hear that? We never thought that could happen here. This is a nice place. Well, it is happening, people. And it's orchestrated. That's the thing. So yes, we have to arrest the world elites. They are toxic. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at about that. So if you have any links of stuff of people just kind of disappearing out of society, particularly world elites and stuff like that, bunkers, all that stuff, share down below. Let people know what's going on. But if you are law enforcement, military, you have no excuse at this point. If you were living beside a gangbanger, you would arrest him. Why would you let a world elite who's destroying millions of people's lives, including your own family, everything you defend on those evil world elites, and they're easy to find. They're easy to find. If you defend all that stuff, whatever happens, they do to everybody else, his family, they're going to do to yours. Why not just do the right thing, be honest, and put these people away? Again, one charge, crimes against humanity. Very simple. Minimum sentence for the acts of terrorism, 150 years each. Make sure these people they're locked away in solitary confinement because of their dangerous. They would not be allowed to contact the outside world for national security reasons. And it would actually be real national security, so that they can't call anybody to give, yes, the cuckoo bird is there, and next thing you know, some false flag happens. No, they can't, give them their day in court, but don't go after them for everything. Just go after them for crimes. People have died because of their lies. It's very easy to prove. The economic collapse was genocidal, that type of thing. And, of course, all the faulty banker wars, genocidal again. The Bush family, none of them should be walking free. WMDs, 1.5 million people died on that lie, including, 4,000 to 6,000 of your so-called, patriotic. I mean, how patriotic are you if you won't even defend your fallen comrades? Really? And you expect respect for that? No. These people died on a lie. You have to do the right thing. The right thing is put these people in jail. Us little guys can only protest. We can make videos. We can do that. But you guys have the investigative tools. You have the means of doing this. Start with the top, work your way down. Never mind the little fish to get the big fish. These guys they've got signatures on papers. Just find one good paper that makes it stick. Crimes against humanity. Arrest them under national security for terrorism, global terrorism. You give them their trial, but you let the punishment be settled. For example, I'd love George Bush to be sentenced in Iraq. I would love Obama and Hillary Clinton to be sentenced in Libya by their government. After they're found guilty, they get to decide the punishment. I would love George Soros to be sentenced in eastern Ukraine. I would love Henry Kissinger, just to go back, again, he's got the death of 58,000 on his hands, Americans on his hands. Vietnam, let them decide the punishment. You know, and only if if they say, oh no, okay, well we'll let them go. I don't think they will, but let's say they do. If they decide a punishment that is lesser than what would be the punishment of 150 years minimum, no possibility of parole, no possibility of communication with the outside world, family included. Just because these people, they're too dangerous. They're too dangerous. You can't let them talk to anybody. And you start with those people. Same Brzezinski, same thing. You can get him, and I'd like to see him tried in Afghanistan. You know, that type of thing. And just work your way down the list. Blair, same thing. Bush's, Clinton's, the whole administrations. Eric Holder, again, turning a blind eye to the bankers. Greenspan, Alan Greenspan. You got obviously Janet Yellen now, Ben Bernanke, all those Lord Blankfein, Jamie Dimon, all these people. And that's just scratching the surface. Like there's so many of them. And they're not too big to jail. There's no such thing as too big to jail. It's just, well, I'll leave you with this thought. You're on your horse, you're going for glory, yes, you're going to do whatever. You got to look back and see what Alexander the Great saw. He saw his men in trouble. His men, countrymen. The people, the whole reason why he was fighting was for them. Why would he just go after the king to be going along, just following orders, whatever? Why would he go and get that king when the people who needed him the most were back there? Well, we're back there. So, anyway, I'll leave it at that. So, Alexander, where are you? Anyway, next to that, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Links down below. Thank you so much to everybody who has. I guess if you want to make a couple of bucks for yourself, you can sign up to my TSU link down below. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's a lot of fun. It kind of clears your head from the crazy stuff like this that we talk about. You can post pictures and memes. It works a lot like Facebook. I'm over $7 now. Yeah. I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm not going to spend it all in one place. But yeah, so check out that link. Sign up under me. Get people to sign up under you. It is pretty good. Next to that, if you really like this kind of content, and if you think it is important, and you know people that it might, I know it's hard to share these kind of things because they do sound pretty paranoid. They do sound, but you can track it. You can track it all. You can see the documents. You can hear them speak. You know these people are crazy as shit. If you think it's important, I know it's a hard thing to ask for people to share, to come out of their shell. But at some point, the emperor has to have no clothes. So share the video. Share the video. I think this is a very important video. Share it. And links. Links. If you find stuff, share that too. I mean, there's so much going on. I can't follow it all. I always appreciate the links people send me, but a lot of times I can't even follow half the links. I mean, I just, somebody gives me a great documentary to watch, but I can only watch so much, right? So share it for everybody else. Make sure everybody gets to see it, because even if I miss it, the message is much more important than the man. I'd rather people see, even if I'm oblivious to what you didn't know about this, put it down there. Yeah, do that. This channel is really, honesty is the best policy. That's the way to go. The world could be a lot more easygoing if we use more honesty, but it has to start somewhere. So I don't mind kicking the ball, but I need others to play too. So share the videos, give them a thumbs up, like them, comment, get active in the comments. Try to keep it as civil as you can. I don't censor my comments, but try to keep it as civil as you can. Next to that, be true to yourself, be true to others. Always do the right thing, and have yourselves a glorious day. It's kind of chilly out here, but I'm gonna go on my skateboard again. Yeah. Have a great day, eh? G'day, hi, and welcome. Well, it's a beautiful day, a little bit chilly. I actually have to wear my toque, and I got my boots and gloves over there. And I got my skateboard. Let's do a quick little. One more, and then we'll get into the topic. I don't know if that picked it up or not. Try one more, maybe. That is weird. All right, today's topic: the disappearing world elites and bankers. Da, da, da. All right, so anyway, I'll get off the board because I know people. It's too windy. We can't hear what you're saying. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm just gonna come to my parking spot right here. There's good. I was supposed to come to a nice straight line, but there. Okay, so. Yeah, exodus of the world elites. Well, they've been doing this for a couple of years now, but it comes to my attention that particularly around like New York and Chicago and places like that, Baltimore I think is another one, all the richest people that are in that area are like taking off. They're going. We know that the world elites have been building bunkers like mad stink since 2012, probably earlier than that, but like in the large numbers since 2012, and A couple little kids there over there at the park. We got a new park, so it's the first year with the park, so or with the swings and all that stuff. So that's cute. Yeah, it's like yeah. So apparently there's a lot of weird things going on simultaneously. And so you got like in the past couple of weeks, a big exodus, from what I understand. I mean, look into it for yourself, that type of thing. And where are they going? You know, places like New Zealand, all these little kind of away from society kind of places. There's been, according to Steve Quayle, which you got to take him with a grain of salt because he does go down the rabbit hole quite a bit. I think a lot of what he covers is 100%, but there's probably a lot of what he covers is so far out there that you can't connect to it with reality, right? It's like you have to put a complete leap of faith to believe what he's saying. So that's what I mean by taking it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying he's wrong. I mean, if he's right about everything he says, I mean, that's a pretty terrifying right. But if he's only right about 1% of what he says, it's still pretty terrifying. I say the same thing about Alex Jones. Now I'm too hot. Too cold, too hot, too cold, too hot. The wind, wind's cold, the sun's warm. And anyway, so, but what he was saying is that there's government food orders that are not going to their normal government suppliers or buyers. They're going to all these new places to like underground shelters and bunkers and stuff like that, and like ridiculous amounts. And it's same like with all these Walmarts closing and stuff like that. Yeah, I think a lot of the economy has to do with that, but there could be commandeering of stuff. Think about it. Okay, you've got, if you closed, let's say you had 100 World Elites, okay? And you drained out just 100 people. It doesn't have to be World Elites, but 100 people. And you drained out a Walmart with everything it had in it, junk and good stuff alike. Just the amount of supplies you would have that would be worthwhile keeping, toilet paper, cleansers, soap, the list goes on and on. How long would that stuff last? Like 100 people. It lasts probably a long time. Maybe not forever, but you clear out, like, say, 100 Walmarts worth of product and put it in these underground. Not only do you have, you'd have pretty much all the basics of life covered for a long time for a lot of people. And there is a fair amount of world elites. Now, uber elites, yeah, okay, their numbers aren't that big on the planet. The 3% of the 1%, that type of thing. Yeah, they're in small enough numbers. But then they're going to be so well stocked and supplied. But there's one thing that no matter how well supplied you are, that is a problem that people don't realize. They think they can prepare for anything and everything. And I'll get into my speculations of what they're doing. Again, looking at world events that are actually going on, you can only talk about the world events going on and then speculate what might come out of it. That's pretty much what I do on this channel all the time. But the thing is you could have everything you want. Let's say this was the size of your bunker and it was laid out however you want. So there's a hockey rink, I don't know, it's like 200 and it's almost an acre. Like it's 200 by, I think, I don't remember what the dimensions for the rink are. It's not a football field, so it's probably like 150, well, it might be close to 200. 208 by 208 is an acre, so it's probably like half an acre right here. So if you had half an acre in a bunker somewhere, underground somewhere, living out the apocalypse or whatever, stocked with anything, no price is the option. I guarantee you would give it all away after only probably even a few weeks to be even out on a cold day like today in the sun. You would give it up for that. Why? It's psychological. And that's where I think the world elites are. I mean, they are sick people to begin with. Can you imagine what these people are going to be like in isolation? Pandorum. They're going to get Pandorum. That's what's going to get. That's what's going to happen. Is they're going to get Pandorum. If you haven't seen the movie Pandorum, it goes back. It's kind of a good movie. Basically, it was this colony that left Earth. Okay, because the planet was dying and there was going to be a big catastrophe. I don't know what the catastrophe was, whether it was an asteroid or whatever it was. And they sent out this ship full of people, and it was going to take something like 10 generations to get to where they were going to go. Now, there was a couple of ships that they sent out, and on the ship, after being in deep space for a while, people would start to develop this kind of paranoia. And this is actually real, that you do get, I don't know, they might exaggerate in the movie, but you do get space, like a space sickness, right? From being encapsulated, you actually kind of go a bit bad. And your brain does go under changes under zero gravity, right? But in the ship, there's gravity. They have a gravitation machine, whatever, magnetic boots, whatever it is, you can run around on. And the thing is that after a while, these people would get Pandorum, and one scene, not a bit of a spoiler alert here, but there's like 5,000 people in hypersleep, okay, and they're going to go rotate, okay, well, you're going to be awake for so many years, and then you're going to go back to sleep, and by the time you get there, you're probably going to be an old person, but it's not about you, it's about the next generations, and you're just going to do this cycle over and over. And one guy wakes up, and like the ship is completely about to melt down, and everything's going wrong, stuff like that, and then there's these things on the ship that have kind of been modified, people that have been turned into basically genetically altered. And that would kind of, and then of course you got these other people suffering from Pandorum, trying to, kind of like extreme paranoia, thinking let's jettison everybody out into outer